Hello.
Hello.
Hello. We're the Board Game Dads, and surprisingly, that was the first take on that, so I'm very proud of us. My name is Anthony, and I'm here once again with two fellow Board Game Dads. We've got Chris Barrows from Tabletop Express and Eric from the Meeples Republic. Gentlemen, hello, and welcome back.
Hello.
What's
I'm just glad to be back. Thank you, as always. It's always a pleasure, and I got to hang out over here a little bit more often. You're on my channel all the time, and drinking my, eating my food, taking stuff from my refrigerator, and,
Well, Chris did specifically ask to be on this episode of Board Game Holiday Spotlight because it turns out that Gardening Day, which is what we're discussing today, gardening seems to be a theme that's very popular, and Chris has a lot of games like that. It turns out that all three of us really do, actually. I'd say, Eric, I'll address this to you, but in terms of making the list for this topic, out of the ones that we've done in the past, there was, a little bit of narrowing down that kind of had to occur. Maybe not as much as other topics, just a lot of these games.
I noticed that, first off, I was like, oh, Gardening Day. I got a ton of games about gardening. And then I looked through my games, and I have a ton of games about flowers and plants, but not so many specifically about gardening.
Okay.
So this. I basically had like 2 or 3 options, and I'm going to give you 2 of them.
There you go. I like the strategy. But before we get to any games, we do usually have a couple of honorable mentions here. I'm going to just go ahead and go first. I have one that is an honorable mention, not because it's off topic. It definitely has some gardening as a major aspect in the game, but we've actually talked about it before here on this channel, on these episodes for Holiday Spotlight, and that is Takanoko, a game that we talked about for National Panda Day. But there is a gardener in that game. Gardening is a way to get points, and there's actually cool 3D bamboo plants that you're growing there. So there's my honorable mention, Takanoko. Chris, how about you? What do you want to throw out real quick?
So I had one game that I'm yet to play that I'm not going to mention because I think I'll be talking about it some point in the next 2 to 3 weeks. But the game that does come to mind for me right now is Stardew Valley. And I have only got a chance to play it once. I love it. It's wonderful, but there's definitely gardening involved in it. And so for me, that is one that I wanted to mention, but I don't feel like I've played enough to speak to it today. So that's why I got to give it the honorable mention.
Well, it's the new hotness, so not many people have experience with that game so far. Chris is always on the cutting edge of the new board games, I'll tell you that. Eric, what about you? What are you going to mention real quick?
So I have 2. One of them is a bit of a cheat, so I'm just going to go ahead and say that one, and that is all farming games. Because in my garden, I like to grow vegetables. It's not a farm, but when I think about growing carrots and corn stalks and pepper, whatever, tomatoes, to me, that's gardening. But most of the board games that do that are more farming specific. So a little bit of a disconnect. So I didn't use any farming games.
How far off though? Like when can you just make your home a farm? I mean, what defines that?
A tractor, some cows. I'm not sure.
Okay, we'll see.
But I'll tell you what, I live in a house with a yard, and we don't have the amount of space to call it a farm. It's just a garden. Anyway, the other one, real quick, is underwater cities, which farming, gardening. That's weird, but technically you are. I guess it's more of a farming game, also, actually, because you're farming kelp. That's one of the resources that you're making in the underwater cities or just outside of the underwater cities. I'm not sure. That's why I'm not going to talk about it.
So do underwater farmers have manatees instead of cows?
I don't know, but I will tell you this, not to go off topic, but manatees use flatulence to control their buoyancy. So yeah, if they want to come up top, they just let out a big underwater fart. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Then they sink. They get all that air out of their system, and they go down more. Yep.
Gotcha. Fascinating.
Right?
The more you know. The more you know. So safe to say that Eric obviously does have some gardening experience under his belt. I know him and his wife enjoy doing that, and same at this household. We usually plant a small amount of veggies and some herbs each year. Last year, for the first time as a new project, I actually created a garden, a flower bed. So I planted for the first time perennials, flowers. So this will be the first year that we'll see if they actually return as per their name, if I did a good job of planting them or not. We'll see about that. Chris, what about you? Do you have any planting or gardening over there?
I do not have a green thumb. We get these nice things and put them in the ground, certainly. But my wife likes it. I just enjoy watching her, do the work and make everything else look around it look better.
All right, so let's just go ahead and get into some picks here. Chris, we're just going to go ahead and start with you. What is your first game about gardening?
So you guys can make fun of me for this one because I don't know if it.
Oh boy,
I don't. Okay, you don't sound too excited.
Oh.
I had some options. One, unfortunately, I not got to play enough, but another one that I didn't feel I could get in that would have fit probably a little bit better to this theme. But I've played this game so much, and I do think of the idea of planting a tree and building an arboretum as along the lines of this general theme of tending to. So I had to talk about a game from Renegade Games called Arboretum. And it's not a perfect fit. My next game is literally a perfect fit, but I like Arboretum quite a bit. I want to point out actually with this one, the art in this game, Felipe Guerin, Chris Cuelmos, and Beth Sobel are amongst them. And Beth Sobel, if you know anything from her, it all looks beautiful. Dan Cesar is the designer of this one. So in this particular game, you've got 80 of those cards that I showed you. They're numbered 1 through 8. You are playing them down, and there's rules to how you're playing these cards down, but you're playing them building paths, either playing them vertical or horizontal to other existing cards. Mm-hmm. You're playing them very strategically, though, because where you play one type of card and a low number, say a number 1, you're going to connect it at another end to another card of the same type. So in building these paths, you're building essentially longer paths. The longer paths at the end of the game, the more points you get. But there's more to it than that. As you're building this path, when the cards run out, the game is over. But the scoring isn't going to take place based on who has the highest point value in cards for each of these particular types. And there's 8 different types of trees here. But what's crazy about it is that's how you're going to actually score your path. So as you're laying your paths, you also have to strategically be playing them while still having a high value card in your hand at the end of the game. Because if you don't have the highest value for those particular paths that you've laid down, you're not going to get any points at all. So there's bluffing going on while you're building this very beautiful kind of display tableau in front of you. So this, I think this can be a little tricky to teach. There's certainly, some people are going to find it a little confusing at first, but I think once you pick this up, it's just a very clean, beautiful game that offers a lot of challenge. I actually looked this up on Board Game Geek. It's actually ranked 41st for family and 260 overall, which I was surprised it was ranked that high. I don't call it hard, but it's definitely a game I describe as one you're going to play 2 or 3 times before you truly really, I think, grasp all the best potential ways to start to play it. And you're going to continue to improve play after play after play. But yeah, it's definitely a fun game. I love it. Like I said, I don't think this screams gardening like my next choice that I'm going to share later on, but it's a game I've enjoyed a lot. And this idea of building your arboretum of your dreams, to me, it's just a nice idea, especially now when we think about getting out and being in nature as it gets warmer. Yeah.
Now, I got a question for you. I've had my eye on this game for a while, and I mean like years, and I haven't pulled the trigger, and I can't remember why. So how does this game play with 2?
I have played it with 2, and I like it. Okay. I've historically played it with 2. I'd argue I like it best at 2.
Okay.
It's fine with, I like it with 3 and 2. With 4, There's definitely I've only done it once, so I don't want to say I'm experienced with that. I think the interesting thing with 3 that you don't get with 2 is there's now 2 rounds where your card may be taken away from your discard pile. What I actually like with 2 is strategically you can put it there if you get a good sense that your opponent's not going to take it, and it could be a holding spot, and then you can pick it right back up.
Got it.
And I think it adds a strategic element. So that's why I like it with 2. Whereas with 3, there's a good chance if with 3 or 4, someone's going to take that card back.
I think, and just this is my own problem, but I think my issue with this game, if it works fine with 2, I don't. First off, like you said, Chris, the art in this game, the trees, just it's terrific. It looks really, really cool. That being said, personally, I found that games that consist of a deck of cards that have numbers on them doesn't have enough to it to me. Like they're either set collection or very, like abstract kind of games. You put this one out, I put this one out, and my number's high. And I typically tend to steer clear of a lot of those types of games. And I know that I'm wrong because I love Lost Cities, and that's just a deck of cards with numbers on it.
It's funny, though, because I compared a lot to, it's like, just an example, because I like Fox in the Forest. I won't play Fox in the Forest all the time, but it's the same kind of world to me in the sense of, there's cards, that's not numbers, that's like a almost like a poker deck with some special abilities. But
it's like
I don't, again, it may not be for everyone, but I think what is nice about it is there is more strategy in this game than you think. And that's what's cool about it, because again, you're trying to get cards down while still keeping certain cards in your hand and not wanting to discard them. So that's why I like it. This is one that I would say, it maybe be good to play before you buy, but I like it quite a bit.
Yeah, so. Eric, I was kind of in the same boat as you. I've seen this game. This game's been out for a long time now, and it's very attractive, which is one of the first things we notice is the artwork, right? And I think
too.
Well, yeah, and it's an affordable.
It's not like a $50 game. It's like $20.
No, I think it's like $18 on Amazon right now.
But I think
it's not like you're gonna spend a ton of money on it, and you could probably get it for less than that.
Right.
I think I watched videos on it and the gameplay didn't really appeal to me. So I would definitely try it. It's been on that fence,
I'd love to try it.
But it's definitely a try before I buy kind of thing. So, Chris, maybe we can get that one to the table someday. Give it a shot.
Sounds good to me.
All right, Eric, on to your first pick for Gardening Day.
All right, my first pick is called a game that I'm pretty sure both you guys own, have played, love. It's called Herbaceous.
Yeah.
It's a very small game. My wife and I actually got this to the table about a week ago. So she's pregnant now, so we don't always want to get up and go into the other room and sit at the table on the chair. So this was a game that we were able to play from the couch. And we had, a little tray there, a little TV tray or whatever you want to call it. And we were able to easily put out all the cards in the middle. And it worked out really well. And I was very happy that we were able to play that. That being said, the game it's set collection. There's 4 different ways that you can score cards. You can get pairs or one of each. And I forget what one of them is these special herbs that you can plant. And you get points that are printed on the cards. And it's you draw a card, and you either keep it. So it's got a little bit of push your luck, which I'm terrible at. So you either keep that card, you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to keep this so that, my opponent can't get it. Or you put it in the community garden, and then you draw another card. And if you put the first one in the community one, you have to keep the next one. So if you keep the first one and then you draw the second one, you're like, oh, great. This is just what, like she needs in order to get this.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do? And then in order to score, you can use whatever cards you have in front of you, whatever cards in the community. And you can just, if you want to score and you want to take one of each different card, you take however many you can from the middle, all yours, and you put them, and that's it. And really simple, really cool. And I've done the herb garden thing. We do rosemary and chives and parsley and oregano and basil every year, and we love it. And so this game really kind of spoke to us. And as soon as I saw it, we bought it.
Yeah, I love this game. It is very simple, and it does have set collection, a little push your luck. But it's cool that the set collection is it's a one and done thing, right? You're going to only, like you said, score that thing one time. So you're going to choose, when do I want to pull the trigger and score this card that does pairs? Do I want to do it with 3 pair? Do I want to push my luck and wait till another comes out? Oh, but is my opponent going to take that one? And there goes the last pair that I wanted. I like that stuff. And I love the mechanic of drawing 2 and putting one the opposite of where you didn't do the first one. That's cool. I don't see that in a lot of games, to be honest.
I like the community garden aspect with anything where there's a community component or something that, when it's put there, it impacts everyone. Potentially. I really enjoy that. I want to note too, I'll be talking more about this at some point in the future because I have Herbaceous Sprout that I'm yet to play.
I was just gonna. Oh, you haven't played it? Okay. I was just gonna ask if either of you have played Herbaceous Sprouts.
No. So that there will be more. I'm actually that's for a future video that I'm planning, and that's what Sprout's literally sitting like about 5 feet away from me. So
cool. All right. So I'm going to get to my first pick here. Both of my games, by the way, are pretty small games, so definitely meet, I think, the couch criteria that Eric was talking about. The first one for sure, and that's called Bloom. This is one of the little roll and write games in the Game Right line. They all have that little cool magnetic tuck box closing thing. Just the pad, score pad with some different sheets on it, and some really colorful dice. These dice in this game are like not your standard colors, not your just red, blue, green, and yellow. You got some purple, pinkish, fuchsia type things, and some sort of lighter pastel-y kind of things, which is kind of cool. But basically, your score sheet is divvied up into these flower beds, and you're going to roll all the dice on your turn, and it's a drafting thing. You're going to take turns picking which die you want, whatever color you pick, and then however many pips are on that, that's how many of those flowers you can circle in the garden, right? So if I choose a 5 blue, I can circle 5 blue. Now, they'll have to be adjacent to each other, right? I can just circle 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here. And you can always take less than that. So let's say you take the 5, but you only have 4 blue to circle. You can do that, but you're going to get dinged a point for having an unhappy customer. In addition to that, you get points basically from filling up your flower beds. There's 6 of them on your score sheet. And then if you're the first person to circle all of the colors, all of one color in your garden, you'll get points for that as well. Pretty cool looking game. As far as roll and writes go, it's a little different than most of those small ones where it's not just a row of numbers and things like that. There's not much to the artwork. It's basic flower stuff, but it's about flowers. It's about gardening. We love roll and writes in this household, and it can get to the table pretty easily because it's super fast. Bloom.
I love one. I've not played that one, but I agree with you on the roll and write factor, because I think they have become so popular now that it's easy to say that I have a roll and write section almost unofficially. I mean, I've noted before, but I have every version of Welcome To. So I love the idea of it. I love quick, easy to pull out, and I'm now going to define I'm now going to start using the phrase couch games a little bit more, because I don't think I said that word before, but that is great, especially as we get back into more of ability to travel in the future and stuff. Those couch games, they make me think of a travel game, the game you can take on the road with you. And that's great. In particular, if you're looking for a game of that type of theme of gardening right now, I mean, something you can take with you and easily play, and no excuses, because it sounds like it's fairly easy to learn, which I think is always good.
Absolutely.
I've seen Rado do a run through for this, and I saw it and I was like, this looks great. It's roll and write. It's about flowers. This would be a great game to buy from Melissa. And as is the case with a lot of games that Rado runs through, I watch the video. I immediately go on Amazon. It's not available. And then I forget about it. By the time it comes out, it's not like I'm going to get like this reminder email, hey, Bloom is finally out at your local game store or wherever you buy stuff online. And I just missed the boat. And then you got it. And so I was like, oh, all right. I want to know can I print up a sheet and we can play this remotely since you own the game, Batista? You
can actually. In fact, the score pad comes with 4 different layouts. There's an A, B, C, and D. So that, so with the option of you can choose to have every player play the same board, right? Everybody plays A. Or you can divvy it up so that, your strategy is a little bit different. You might not be going for something a certain turn that you might later on, because you don't have the same thing colored. And Yeah, that's an easy one to do for sure. Look into that.
Get on that.
And check Right on Game Right on their website as well. And if you buy any Game Right game, they always have a little fold up catalog, which is not uncommon, but they also always have a coupon that's good for, I forget, it's 20% off or something of another game. And all their games are pretty affordable overall.
Which is usually like $2 off of half the Game Right games.
Well, yeah. Because
exactly. A lot of them are 10. I think this one's like $10.
Yeah, probably.
This one's, which is great. I think that's again, another selling point. I think a lot of what we've talked about already tonight has been they're very affordable games to get to the table. If you bought all of them, honestly, you wouldn't have spent $50 at this point. That's actually
true.
Now,
pretty cool.
Is this Bloom game the one that's spelled BL0OOM or BLUME? Because I know there's two different ones, and I can't remember which is which.
It's OOM.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Game Right, and it's not Game Right has some very good rolling rights too. I just don't think they've got, I think, Rolling America, which I've never played, but I've heard good things about too. Not gardening
one as well.
But I just think Game Right may be underrated in that category sometimes because we hear about the big ones or the super well-known ones, but they do a good job in just putting out a lot of variety. So I think everyone should just check Game Right out regardless of the holiday.
I wrote it down when Batista mentioned it. I was like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna check out what else they have. I'll go to their website for 20% off and see what they got.
What's cool about the way they categorize their games as well, and we've kind of talked about this, is getting off topic, no surprise. We've talked about this before about the age ranges that are usually on game boxes and how sometimes they're sort of like, did they just make it up or what? But what Game Right does is they actually categorize, like, I don't know the specific ranges, but it's like almost like a 3 to 5 year old category, and then like 5 to 8 or whatever. So you can tell that the difficulties are that close together with a slight increase, that there's a lot to choose from, and you can kind of get away with even varying up and down a level every now and then. So there's that.
Speaking of age ranges on games,
yes,
and not to continue to go off topic, but
you are,
when a game says something like 10 to 99, like if you could play it at 99, why can't you play it at 100?
Could you imagine?
It should just be like a skull and crossbones, right? Like 10 to death.
Family reunion time. Who wants to play a game? Oh, sorry, Grandpa. I know it's your birthday today and all, but because you're 100, can't play.
You're not allowed.
All right. So, Chris, you had promised that we were going to be able to make fun of you, which I think we both forgot about, Eric. So we'll make fun of you now for a little bit. Arboretum, that's not a garden. Those are trees.
No, but it's a cool game that I was interested in hearing about because I've had it on my radar. So I've completely forgot to make fun.
And in all fairness, I was hoping to play Herbaceous Sprout before now, and it just didn't get in. And again, I could have talked about Stardew, and I know it's the hotness, so people probably want to hear about it, but it deserves its own entire thing. Like it really does. Plus, it's not just gardening. It really isn't. Stardew Valley is just, there's so much going on in that game, and it's definitely not just like that's a subplot to an entire thing that's happening in that game.
I'm glad that you didn't bring up Herbaceous Sprouts as a game to talk about, because then you would have stolen my thunder on Herbaceous.
Yeah, there you go. I promise the one I'm going to talk about though stands up, but can I make a mention? Give a second honorable mention because I can't play it yet. But on Kickstarter, I backed it. I believe you backed it. Ben Pinchback, Matt Riddle, Three Sisters, Beth Sobel is an artist on this as well. This is coming in 2021 at some point, and this one, Three Sisters, which was a game of managing your garden of corn, beans, and pumpkins. It looks terrific, and if I could have played that one before now, I would talk all day about it, because
I think we will talk about that at some point in the future for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, so, I'm not sure if we backed it. Hey, Melissa, did we back Three Sisters? She's asleep.
Oh.
Nice.
All right, Chris. So what is your second and more legitimate gardening pick?
Much more legitimate. It's called Succulent.
Hey,
and Succulent is a game, literally, this is the Board Game Geek description, by the way. Use your green thumb to tend, prune, and grow the most beautiful succulent garden. So it is on point. This is a really wonderful game. You have a few actions that you can take in this game. What you're trying to do is you're going over a series of turns and you're collecting succulent cuttings from your garden with water crystals, and you're completing projects. Now, what's really cool about this game is there's a few pieces that make it very interactive. When I place a piece down in this game and it is adjacent to someone else, they get a small crystal, a small watering crystal, and they're actually filling in. I'm going to pull up a board. You have a board like this, and you can see spots for crystals on it. Now, if you fill in those spots, the neat thing is there's numbers next to them. There's a victory point next to them. So when you get a larger crystal, a larger water crystal, and you have it next to that, that's end game scoring if it's still there. But this has a dual purpose. As you're trying to collect your projects, which have requirements of clippings, every type of clipping is on this board. If you fill that with all the water crystals and it's completely filled, you can use that to represent one of those clippings. So you can now use that, clear one of those spots, and use it to complete projects. There's another really neat thing in this game, because when you are going and collecting clippings, there's sizes that you're putting down on the board. There's one that's just collecting one that's collecting two, and then even larger than that. As you're going over, you're collecting all those clippings. There might be small water crystals on them as well, and you're putting them into your pile, and that's great. But then you can also make the decision to kind of put your piece down on one of the projects and say, I'm taking ownership of this project. If I, however, decide to take a project that Anthony has put his piece on, Anthony's still going to collect ultimately some reward for that project. He's essentially going to be able to get that a crystal for that project. So again, there's an interactive levelness there that's happening, that I might be getting points for the project, but then Anthony's still getting some reward because he had put something on it. And it is nice because your actions that you're taking, the complete project action is the second part. So you're either picking up a piece or placing a piece. Action are actions that you're choosing to take. And then, and you have to take, I should say, you have to do those every round. But the actual completing a project action is the optional one. So you're working to complete those. But it's simple: 2 actions and then the optional action. And then end game scoring is basically victory points. It's going to be when you have your larger water crystals on that board that I held up. And then third of all, for every different type of piece that you have, you get a half point for each. So you get a half point for something there. So half points can decide the game. The thing I think is important to note that I did not note is you're filling out this larger board, and once you've filled an entire board, you get the ability to choose what board to flip over. So there's other boards that are not yet flipped over, and then you have that choice because you're the one who completed it. This is not a game that you can play from the couch. It definitely takes up some space, but let me tell you, it looks great on the table, and it's a fun game. And I am not trying to plug Renegade Game Studios, but this is also Renegade Game Studios, and I clearly love their games because I didn't even think about that when I made the list, and I'm realizing it as I read this stuff now. Yeah, I love this game though. But again, this, as I said, and I'll tell you, this one, isn't on, I think, as many people's radars. I think this was hot when it initially came out. People were talking about this, but I mean, Board Game Geek has it at, like, I'm checking now, 4,679. Like, but I think this is a much better game than 4,679. I will say that much.
This is another game that I saw Rado do a run through for, and I was like, "Oh man, this game looks cool." And I went and I looked it up, not available, and I just forgot about it. I did have. So I know when he did his run through, I believe he was using a prototype.
Yeah,
and the board, I guess, is there a main board that's just black and white?
There's not a main board. It's literally just, I'll pull one out here. There's a variety of these. So you can see the back side. It just looks like this, and it's got an arrow.
Right.
If I flip it over, it looks like that.
Okay.
So you've got the board set up with a variety of these, and then once the ones that start the game are covered completely with the tiles that I told you, essentially you can flip over another one. And you, as the person who completed it, are the one who's going to have that capability to do so.
Gotcha.
All right, Eric, your next pick is pretty on the nose for the theme, I believe. Is that correct?
I mean, it's got the word garden in the title of the game.
Yeah, there you go.
So this was a no-brainer. It's like, hey, gardening day. I have Cottage Garden. What else do I have? So Cottage Garden, another game in the Uwe Rosenberg trilogy of seasonal games with polyomino tiles. And this is actually my favorite of the three. It's got that same 4x4 grid where you're moving along the horizontal and vertical. So in a couple of turns where you're going to be the options you're going to have, right? So there's 4 down here, and that on your next turn you're going to be able to get one of these 4, and then on your turn after that you're going to be able to get one of these other 3 or 4, and it's really cool. I would say maybe my favorite implementation of polyomino.
Okay.
You have a board, and each board is different, and you can flip them over, and they have different, and they'll have different spaces that they have, like potted plants or just like the clay pots, and they're each worth 1 point. And so you want to take these polyomino tiles and put them in the board and not cover the pots. And so it's cool. So you're not just trying to fill in a square. You're trying to fill in a square, but you don't want to fill in this spot here, and you don't want this one. And you can fill it, but then you get less points. And it's really interesting. And it has little kitty cats that you can put out, and they just take up a space. Like they go and lay in your garden. You're like, well, not planting anything there. And then you can use them to fill in that space. Great. Now this whole board is done. I've used all these tiles. I get all these points. And then I'll just put my cat in this one last spot. Take the board, score all the points, flip the board over, and continue on your next turn.
Is this one of the games that has the empty circles in the?
It does not have the empty circles.
Right. The other two do, right?
The other two do, and I think that's why I don't like the other two as much, because both games that have the circles in one random spot on these polyomino tiles have some sort of mechanism where, if you can put out 4 tiles and you have 4 circles next to each other, you get points or a special thing. That is not easy to do that, to put these in such a way that you're putting them in a spot that benefits you, and also you're getting the 4 squares lined up in a square, or the 4 circles lined up in a square. It's not easy. This one though, Cottage Garden with the little pots, the little kittens, best of the 3. Easily best.
Looks really good. Looks really good.
I'm taken. I have to say, I think it's a very telling thing for you to say your favorite polyomino game too, because it's area that
it's not necessarily my favorite polyomino game. It's my favorite implementation of polyomino tiles, because you have a board that has spots that you don't want to cover, but you can if you need to. Whereas, you just have to take these. You just have to fill in this entire grid. That's one thing. Or you have to fill in this entire grid, but except for these random spots here. And I think that's interesting. I think that gives it something different that you don't see in a lot of the other polyomino tile games.
That's true, because what you just described, I don't know, but I've seen. That doesn't sound, and I haven't played. I maybe haven't played as many polyomino games as you. I have literally Isle of Cats sitting behind me still to be played too. But when I think about polyomino, it's a fun type of game because you are strategically trying to put things down in the best possible way, knowing where you're going to have some challenges.
Right.
So it's like you're constantly thinking, which with gardening to me also makes a ton of sense, because when you think about gardening, you're planting something or thinking about where to put something with the idea of what is your grand plan? How are you laying out this entire garden? So I love that actual interconnection with polyominoes and gardening. Yeah,
this one's really cool. We'd have to do a whole other video just on polyomino games, right? Because I'd have to go through all of them and be like, oh yeah, I forgot about that game. And then patchwork. Well, I got Christmas patchwork. Which one's better? But yeah, this is definitely up there as one of my favorite polyomino games. Possibly my favorite.
All right, so I've got one final game here. This one is even smaller than my first one, which is a small game already. This one is called So. Oh, I just threw it at the camera. SOW. This is one of the Pack-O games by Chris Handy. I think there were 2 sets of these games, and then maybe a couple of standalones, but they're all this size, a pack of gum basically, so they fit in your pocket. And this one in particular, about gardening, because it does have cards that have flowers and seeds on them. So before you can get to a flower, the one side is a seed. This is a Mancala type game. You know, Mancala, where you pick up like a bunch of beads, I guess it was in the original Mancala game, and sort of redistribute them in these different spots, right?
It's a 5 tribes game.
5 tribes, yeah. But so in this one, instead of picking up little, pebbles or stones or something, you're just picking up these rows of cards. And so you'll pick up one row and you'll redistribute them in one direction, either left or right, depending on which way the windmill or the wind is blowing, I should say. And then whatever the last one is, if it's a seed that you placed last, it's going to flip over to the flower side. If it's a flower side already, and it's under one of the columns that are under these wheelbarrow cards, then you can then harvest that, basically take that one out and put it into your bouquet. So each of those wheelbarrows, placed from 2 to 4, is the same on top, and then underneath is a specific color flower, which is going to be secret to everybody except yourself. So you look at yours. All right, my favorite color here is blue. So I'm trying to score blue flowers in this game. And so you're going to get points at the end of the game for, well, I should mention, so the flower pictures are, I'll show you what they look like real quick. The flower pictures have one color in the middle of the flower and then a color petals on the outside. So at the end of the game, you're going to score points for your favorite color. Now, if your favorite color was blue, for example, you'll get more points. I believe it's 3 points per flower that has blue in the middle. But then you also get points, I think 2 points per flower of blue that's on the outside. And then you'll still get 1 point for any flower that doesn't have your color. So you're going to get points for anything. There's no negative points in this, which I like. It's pretty thinky. One of the things I didn't love about 5 tribes was how, I think it was the first time I experienced analysis paralysis in a game, and I didn't know what it was. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm going to do that. Oh, wait. Oh, no. I don't know what to do. So there's definitely a little bit of this. It feels less severe, I guess, because it's just these cards, right? But I've only played it with 2 people, and I really think it would be a lot better with 4, not even 3. Because what happens in 2 or 3 is, with 2, you're controlling the wheelbarrow in front of you, but also the one to your right. In a 3-player game, everyone has their own wheelbarrow, and then that 4th one, everyone controls when it's their turn. It's very fiddly. I think in a 4-player game, straight up, everybody's got their own color they're looking to score. I think would just make the game flow a little more smoothly, I guess, for this kind of game. I don't know.
It's impressive how much they fit, but again, into that game, just in a small little box. And that sounds like a much deeper game than anyone would expect when you hand them that box.
For how small this box is? Yeah, for sure. It's thinky.
How many cards come in that box?
Good question. Let's see here. You got 30 cards.
Okay.
There's 24 of them are the seed/flower cards. Oh, I forgot to mention there's 2 garden cards. There's the windmill. I think I didn't mention the windmill, actually. So the windmill is going to determine which direction the wind blows, so which direction you redistribute the cards, clockwise or counterclockwise.
Got it.
And then there's a gopher that will remove all the flowers of one color that you name from the row, just take them out of the game completely. And the way these 2 things ever happen is they have to be one of the cards that you picked up and redistributed them on top of each other. So they've got to be in the same spot to actually do their actions. In the game that Lauren and I played of this, actually this evening, neither one of us did either one of these. We just they didn't line up. But the gopher would then flip over to the watering can side, which I think does the opposite. It probably scores you a bunch or something like that. We didn't use it, so I'm not sure.
Now, in this series of games, I forget what the series is called. Are they all 3-letter words?
Paco games. They are all 3-letter words. Yep.
Got it. Okay.
It sounds like just a nice game to be able to have to pull out, but it does sound like also, I guess I'd ask you this. is this because it's got that analysis paralysis potential for someone? I'm assuming this isn't. Is this something you bust out with someone like who doesn't normally do that type of game, or is this something you hold for more of like the gamer that you know for in between maybe something?
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess it depends, right? I mean, if you were to introduce this game to someone who hasn't played a lot of modern board games, they might not feel the analysis paralysis, right? Or they might feel it, but not, I guess, recognize what it is. So it may not bother them. Would you say, Eric?
They might not win.
They might not win.
I don't know what to do. Okay, give me 5 minutes here. I want to figure out how to just embarrass you in this game.
But there were a lot of moments where I was like, "Oh, do that? Oh no, I just gave that, to Lauren." And again, because with 2 players, you're controlling 2 wheelbarrows. It was kind of like, I don't know, it just seemed I'd rather determine, all right, who do I want to give this to, this player or this player, as opposed to everything I do is going to go to the other player in a 2-player game. So I think it would play better at 4, but because of the AP, I believe playing at 4 probably makes the game go a little bit longer. So it's a bit of a trade-off. It's not a very long game at all. Nothing like 5 Tribes. So the comparison stops at the Moncala thing for sure.
You know what else this game has going for it?
What's that?
Couch game.
Couch game. And it looks cool when you set it up because you do the wheelbarrows go in 4, make a square.
Cool.
And then you do all these little diagonals around, so it kind of looks almost like a flower when it's laid out. So that's my second pick. Cool. So that being said, we're going to start to wrap things up here. I will add real quick that we always do talk about ways to introduce new people into gaming. And one of the easiest ways to do that, I always say, is, ask someone what they're interested in. Anything. Doesn't have to be games. Anything. Movies, hobbies, whatever, books. And I feel like the whole, nature broadly, right? But this gardening thing and flowers and things like that, a lot of people are into that hobby. A lot of people love planting. A lot of people love having their own little herb garden and even something a little bit bigger with pumpkins and whatever kind of stuff they like to do in their backyard. I think it's such a good theme that it's an easy bridge to introduce people who might have a slight interest in gardening at all. Be like, hey, check out this game I have about an herb garden. Oh, that's cool. What's it called? Herbaceous. Oh, you might win the coveted herb biscuit bonus in that one.
Right.
So there's that. All right, gentlemen, anything else to add before we close up the garden for the night?
The only thing I would say is, on top of what you just said, I do think looking at those holidays and the games that connect is important. Just because something is considered an entry level game or a beginner game, Stone Age is not going to excite everyone. And Stone Age gets brought up as an example as like this great way to introduce, say, worker placement, right? Stone Age may not excite. Sometimes something that's slightly harder or maybe a little bit more challenging to learn, but is in that level of interest, is going to draw better attention. So I just bring that up just because I think gardening is extremely popular. A lot of people like to do it. I think especially as we talk now, after a year where it was a solo thing that some people are just doing to pass the time.
Yep.
Quite frankly, I look at that just as much as I look at how easy is this to potentially teach the game. Is it a streamlined, 2 actions? Succulent, as an example, as I mentioned, not the simplest game, but quite frankly, there are 2 actions to take. And yes, there's strategy and stuff, but it's definitely not what I'd call entry level. But would it be a good entry level game for someone who likes gardening? Probably.
All right, folks. So we're going to take off our gardening gloves here, go wash up, and then check back tomorrow and see how our little sprouts did out there. Thanks to Chris and Eric for joining me. As always, you can go ahead and click the little thumbs up icon under this video, or, and even better, you can subscribe to Board Game Dads on YouTube and check out BoardGameDads.com for all of the past board game holiday spotlights that we've ever done, along with some collaborations with Chris as well. Chris, thanks for joining us again. And Eric, we'll see you next time.
Happy gardening day, everybody. And if you do have your own garden out there, don't forget to water.